My friend Gudi is visiting from Germany, and I want to take her on this river cruise. It leaves from a nearby town called Totnes, and the boat goes down the river to another town that's at the mouth of the river and the English Channel, and it's called Dartmouth. I've always wanted to do this river cruise, and for some reason I've never done it. So this is a really fun opportunity. We can do it together. Gudi is not a painter or a drawer. She's a wizard with a sewing machine, but I don't want to spend too much of our time doing art and making her watch me. So I've decided that instead, I'll use the opportunity to do a few really quick color studies and watercolor sketches whilst we go on the boat down the river, and maybe I'll even have time to do a little sketch in my aspirin tin. So I've decided to bring my little tiny pochette box by Blue Star Crafts, and I thought it would be perfect for doing little watercolor sketches as we go down the river. I'm hoping it works out. I'm hoping the weather is good enough and it's not too cold. But I thought this is nice. I can hold it in one hand, hold a water brush in another, use my athletic wristband for cleaning the brush on my wrist, and maybe get a few color studies in. This will be a very good lesson for me as well, because I tend to be a little bit more controlled with my art and wanting to have a finished piece and wanting it to be just so. And with the boat moving, I'm gonna have no choice but to have to move very quickly. And that will be kind of fun. It'll be like being a student again. And then I'm bringing my tiny little aspirin tin. And in this, I will do some type of little sketch, maybe when we're at lunch or some other place where, again, she doesn't have to wait for me. But this will be my fun way of honoring plein air Pearl, as well as putting a little bit of a creative tilt to our outing together. I considered bringing my Sundeck art wrap, the Sundeck Mini, but I just love this one so much. So I've readjusted a few things, put down the things that I think that I'll be using the most over on this section so that I can access everything easily. And then I'll have the aspirin tin in this pocket here. I've got my 2 water brushes, both filled up and ready to go, and my spray mister. And I've taken out some of the heavier things that I usually keep in the back, but I have a fresh wristband for cleaning the brush, and that can go in here as well. And this will keep it rather lightweight. I want everything to fit into a lightweight backpack. We'll be gone all day long and then catching the boat back on the return. So 2 boat rides and a day out means that I want to travel lightly. So this is going to do it for me. And then this can go in my backpack, and then I'll put this little pochette box in its holster. I'm using this little plastic container from some dental sticks that I had, and inside of it I'm putting some extra paper that's a nice watercolor paper so that I can do multiple copies of watercolors. I've removed the little brush that's in here because I don't want to lose it. I know that I'll be using the water brush for this, and so that's all I need to bring. And then it has this nice little holster, and the box fits inside. There's some extra water on the bottom and some tissues on the side. And then I can either hang this from my backpack or clip it to my belt or to one of the shoulder straps on the backpack. I'm not sure how much I'll use the holster. I may just decide to keep the box separate, but I'm bringing it along to see how I get on with it. Poppy will be coming along for the journey. So I packed some treats and a blanket and a little jacket for her to make sure that she's warm, and a little portable water cup and some water. So I think we're all set, and I'm going to bring you along with us. So let's go. The riverboat starts in Totnes. When we first moved to Devon, we rented an apartment in Totnes that wasn't too far from here. And every day I took Poppy for a walk along the river, and I always saw this boat go past. But as I said, this is the first time I've actually gone on it. So I'm curious to see how the land looks from a different vantage point. We paid a little bit extra for a doggy ticket for Poppy, and she was really afraid when the boat first started because the engines, as they turned around, made a very loud noise, and I could imagine to a little dog that it sounded a bit like a monster. But the noise soon calmed down, and we went on top to the deck, and I prepared to do my first little mini painting. I've been thinking about it, and I honestly don't think that I've ever done quick sketch paintings in watercolor plein air before. So I was really nervous about doing this, and especially about filming my first time doing this, because I really expected to fail. But in the spirit of full disclosure, I thought if it fails, and I'll share that with you, and that would be a lesson in itself. I was prepared for the land to move quickly, and it did, but I wasn't prepared really for the experience. I don't know if anything could prepare somebody for the experience of a gently moving vehicle. It was completely different than the experience of a moving car or train or bus. For one thing, things moved more slowly, but things were also more smooth. And although the landscape changed constantly, the colors really remained fairly consistent. So the way I approached this painting is similar to the way that I would approach any painting in watercolor. I started by putting down the lightest colors and then building the darker values on top of that. I took a good look at the scene that I planned to paint and really just tried to remember where the hills were and the basic colors. And then I think I spent only about 3 to 5 minutes on this sketch from start to finish. This is the sort of exercise that I would give my students when I taught at university, something that felt completely unnatural and was really uncomfortable to do, meaning to do a speed painting. And the thing about being a professor is that people expect you to be an expert and to know everything. And the truth of the matter is, I don't know everything. I don't think anybody knows everything. But because I have had this title in my life, I have a fear of making mistakes in front of other people. And so I think more than anything, I really loved the fact that I allowed myself some time to just play with paint for a while instead of always trying to control it. And I think that's something that everybody can benefit from. Allowing yourself the time and the freedom to play returns you to that childlike state, which I believe is the most truly creative state anybody can be in. It's the most essential place for growth, and I certainly don't allow myself to go there enough. And I'm suspecting that maybe some of you don't either. So let's make a promise together to play more often. At the very end, I decided to add a little bit of ink with my fountain pen, and I used my water-soluble ink so that I could blend it in a little bit. Some of the constant features that I noticed in the landscape were the way that the banks of the river met the river itself, and there was a darkness at the base of the land that I really wanted to capture. And all in all, I wasn't too terribly disappointed with my first attempt. I really liked the freshness of it, and I absolutely loved the experience of it. I always enjoy plein air painting anyway, but something about the gently moving boat along the river and the undulating countryside just was the chef's kiss. It was really pretty magical, and of the entire trip, I have to say that both of the boat rides were definitely my favorite part. I only did one painting on the way down to Dartmouth. Like I said before, it was my first time really seeing the land from the river. And I'm really not all that familiar with the stretch between Totnes to Dartmouth. I've only really done the journey a few times. And it was such a visual treat, looking at all the little villages and even seeing Agatha Christie's house where she lived, and which is now a national trust and available for the public to tour. And as we pulled into Dartmouth, the beautiful colors of all of the houses and the sailboats bobbing on the water just were really pretty special. Located at the mouth of the English Channel on the River Dart, Dartmouth is a beautiful town that's steeped in maritime history. It's the home of the 600-year-old Dartmouth Castle that guarded the entrance to the Dart estuary and is a worthwhile day visit on its own. And it's also twinned with Kingswear Castle on the other side of the estuary. Together, the two guarded this area for hundreds of years. By the mid-1300s, Dartmouth was one of the busiest ports in England. It was the sailing point of the Crusades, and in the 1500s, many famous sailors lived there, including Sir Walter Raleigh. It was the home of the Royal Navy and was an important launching port during World War II for D-Day. It features some of the finest medieval buildings and has many medieval and Elizabethan streets with narrow lanes and stone stairways. These days, it's a popular tourist destination because of the many things to do and because of the nearby beaches. But I love it for its history and architecture. Gudi and I stopped for lunch at a restaurant that I won't recommend because we really didn't care for our food. But whilst we were there, I decided to do a little sketch. There were a few interesting views out the windows, but this one really caught my eye. I loved the way it was framed by the stained glass, and so I did a quick little sketch while we had our drinks. You can see behind me some of the beautiful architecture, and we're here in these gardens that are right on the river where we came in. I think we're going to head around the corner now and check out the old merchant's house. The Dartmouth Museum is located in a 17th century merchant's house called the Butterwalk. Built between 1635 and 1640, it was one of the finest merchants' houses anywhere in England. It featured carvings of heraldic animals and human heads, elaborate carved friezes, decorative plaster ceilings, and wainscot paneling. The central post of the curved staircase is made from an old ship's mast made of Baltic pine. A new man-made quay was built to extend the length of space for merchants' houses to be built near the ships to supervise their loading and unloading. And because of this, the house is built on a foundation of mud. We only had a half hour before they closed, so we had a whistle-stop tour. There was a display of pottery from the now extinct Dartmouth pottery, a display about Old Stone Manor from nearby Black Otten, which was destroyed by a fire in 1895, and is memorialized by a dollhouse based on photos, drawings, and reminiscences of a family descendant, complete with tales of murder and ghosts. And a huge display about the Mayflower and Speedwell, which carried the Pilgrims to the New World. It includes a huge replica of the Mayflower, which came to Dartmouth Harbor in 1620 for repairs. Rumor has it that some of the crew sabotaged the ship to escape the uncertain and perilous voyage to the New World. There's also an entire room devoted to models of different engines and another of the history of shipmaking. I could spend a whole day here just drawing the ships. My favorite by far was a room designed as a Victorian study to commemorate William Cumming Henley, who was a tradesman by career to support his mother and family, but who had the Victorians' thirst for knowledge and betterment, and was also an artist, draftsman, naturalist, microscopist, linguist, and collector. After his death at 59, his sister Nellie bequeathed his books and collections to the town. I love his many drawings and watercolors of Dartmouth, which show a valuable glimpse into Victorian Dartmouth. When I visit old towns like this, I can't help but think about the history and wonder how it used to be before it was all touristy and built up. And this is such a beautiful town. I love the architecture and the glimpses of old. And you almost could go back in time and feel that things would be very similar to how they are in some areas of the town anyway. Right across the river is another town called Kingsware, and if you drive there, you can drive your car onto a ferry, and the ferry will bring your car across to the other side. Normally when I come to Dartmouth, I've taken that ferry, but this time we took the river cruise instead. Our return journey was several hours later, and the weather had definitely changed. It was much more stormy, which made for more exciting paintings. The insecurity and nervousness that I felt doing the first painting on the way down really wasn't there anymore. I already had one painting completed, and so I felt like anything else that I did was really just icing on the cake. I bundled Poppy up on my lap with her little blanket, and I set about painting one of the really stormy views that I saw. One thing that surprised me was the intuitiveness of mixing the paint. I usually put a little bit more thought into painting, and there was no time for that when you only have 3 to 5 minutes to complete a painting. What I was going for here most of all was a sense of atmospheric perspective, which was very clear in all of the views. So the objects that were further away were cooler and more faded, and the closer objects were warmer and darker. I'm not sure how accurately I conveyed the atmospheric perspective, but I was thinking about it as I did these little paintings. And honestly, I was thinking as I did this that I could happily take this boat ride once a week just for painting. Unfortunately, because of the tides, there's always the necessity to wait several hours between the two journeys. But they do have another tour where you can take a bus back or a train, and maybe that would be a little bit quicker and offer other things to look at and possibly paint as well. It's definitely not necessary to take a boat or any kind of vehicle to do this type of quick painting. You could do the same thing by just setting a timer or a stopwatch, and every 3 minutes you have to stop and start a new painting. I also think it helped to keep the surface small. I did consider bringing my postcard-size pochade box for watercolors, but I decided there was absolutely no way that I would be able to do a quick painting in watercolors on anything that was larger than maybe 3 inches by 3 inches. But the benefits of doing something like this is that it's similar to warming up your muscles before you exercise. Only in this case, you're warming up your creativity. It helps you develop habits to work more quickly, to keep your brush strokes or mark making looser and expressive. And I think working more quickly actually helps you not overthink mixing colors. You do things a bit more intuitively. I was really getting into the idea of painting, and I could happily have done another 1 or even 2, but poor little Poppy was shivering by the time I finished the second one, and so I decided to call it a day. So I'll give you a few moments just to watch me finish this painting here, and then we'll go home to my studio and take a look at the final results. wasn't filming. We're gonna go home. And here's a final glimpse of the paintings after they're home and dry. I like the simplicity of the first one with the touches of the water-soluble ink. And the second one I think might be my favorite because I just loved the storminess of that area of the river. The design of the third one I don't think is what I originally saw, but again, when the boat is moving so quickly, you just latch on to what you can. But overall, it was a really great experience, and one that I plan to repeat sometime soon. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a beautiful day with many, many painting adventures of your own.